They say some crimes leave a mark on a town. Others leave a mark on the people who investigate them. That I didn't believe that. Not really. Until the case of Evelyn Marks, when I first walked into that house, it didn't feel like a crime scene. It felt still, almost reverent. The kind of stillness that only exists after something terrible has already happened, and everyone left too afraid to breathe. The fire had been small, contained to the bedroom. A candle, they said. An accident, probably. But something about the way the room had burned, selective, controlled, didn't sit right with me. The rest of the house looked untouched. Every frame on the wall was dusted. Every book lined up. There was order in that house, not chaos. And yet, a woman was dead. Her name was Evelyn Marks. 79, retired librarian. Widowed. Quiet. The kind of person whose obituary would barely fill a column inch in the local paper. She'd lived alone for the last 15 years. Her only regular visitor was her caretaker, Hayley Reid, 26, certified nurse assistant. No record. No prior complaints. Paid in cash by the family. When I spoke to Hayley the first time, she was calm, too calm. She said she'd left early that night, before the fire started. Said she'd checked the candles, turned off the stove, locked the doors. Her voice never wavered. But her eyes, they were fixed somewhere far away. The fire investigators were quick to close it. Faulty wiring, they said, but the next morning. The fire chief called me back. Detective Miller, he said. We found something you'll want to see. It was a small leather journal. Half-burned, discovered under a loose floorboard in the hallway. The pages were scorched at the edges but mostly intact. The handwriting was neat, deliberate. Each entry dated, precise. The first page read, "She doesn't know yet." None of them ever do. But she'll thank me when it's over. I remember staring at that sentence for a long time. It didn't sound like Evelyn. It didn't sound like the ramblings of a 7 to 9-year-old woman. It sounded like someone confessing, or warning. The coroner's report came in the next day. Evelyn died from carbon monoxide poisoning before the fire reached her room. No smoke in the lungs. No struggle. Just silence. That changed everything. The fire wasn't an accident, and the journal wasn't just a diary. As I read deeper, I began to see a pattern, names, dates, symptoms, and a kind of ritual care. Whoever wrote this had a method. Each entry described patients who had suffered too long. The final entry was dated 3 days before Evelyn's death. E.M. is ready. The end will be peaceful. Like the rest. There were 7 initials in total across the journal. 7 sets of dates. 7 people. Hayley Reid had been the caretaker for 5 of them. When I brought her back in for questioning, she didn't flinch. She said, "Detective, people die under my care because they're sick. That's what happens." I asked her if she recognized the journal. She looked at it for a moment, then whispered, "That's not mine." But something changed in her face when I flipped to the page with Evelyn's initials. Her breathing slowed. Her eyes filled with something I couldn't name. Fear, guilt, maybe relief. Back at the station, I logged the journal into evidence, but I couldn't shake one thought. If this was a killer's confession, why hide it in the victim's house? There was a logic behind it, a design. And if there's one thing I've learned in 20 years on the job, it's that patterns tell you more about a person than their words ever will. That night, I sat alone in my office, the journal open under the desk lamp, page after page of calm handwriting. Measured tone. No emotion until one entry stopped me cold. He'll find this when he's ready. He always does. And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt since my first case. Someone out there was already watching me. By the time I got back to the precinct, the autopsy photos were waiting. The medical examiner had highlighted a thin puncture mark on the inside of Evelyn's left arm. Almost invisible, right where a nurse would typically insert an 4. Post-mortem lividity suggests she was lying on her side for hours before the fire, the ME said. But here's the odd part. There's no sign of struggle. No bruising, no restraint marks. Whoever did this, she trusted them. Trust, that word kept echoing in my head. I went back over the caregiver roster. 6 elderly patients, all in Franklin County, all dead within the last 2 years. No foul play suspected in any of them, but all had one thing in common. Hayley Reid listed as caretaker. The 7th name in the journal had initials I didn't recognize, RM. Dated 3 weeks from the last entry, next to it. One chilling line, "He'll be the hardest. He still believes people can be saved." RM could have been anyone. A neighbor, a doctor, maybe even a family member. But when I ran the initials through our database, something clicked. Richard Maynard, retired pastor. Lived 2 miles from Evelyn's house. Guess who his home nurse was? When I went to see him, it was a grey morning, the kind where the light fields filtered through dust. Maynard's house sat behind a row of bare oak trees, the curtains drawn tight. I knocked 3 times before he opened the door. He was thin, pale, but his eyes were sharp. "You're not hospice," he said flatly. "No," I replied. "Detective Miller. I'd like to ask about your caretaker, Haley Reed." At the sound of her name, his expression changed. He looked past me, towards something distant, then said quietly, "I told her to stop visiting." "Why's that?" He hesitated. She said Evelyn had finally found peace. But the way she said it, it didn't sound like grief. It sounded like pride. He led me to his living room. There were no family photos, no television, just stacks of books and a Bible on the table. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic. "She kept talking about mercy," he continued. "That some people suffer too long. That letting them go is a kind of kindness." Did she ever say she'd done that before? His eyes flicked up. "Detective, I think she believed she was saving souls." Back at the station, we pulled Haley's employment records. They were clean. Too clean. Every agency she'd worked for had glowing reviews. Not a single complaint, not even a tardy report. IT was the profile of someone meticulous, someone who planned ahead for every possible consequence. When we checked pharmacy logs, things got interesting. Over 2 years, she'd filled prescriptions for morphine and midazolam, sedatives used in hospice care. All within legal limits. All properly signed off. But here's the catch. The prescribing doctor had retired 18 months earlier, so how was she still getting refills? The DEA liaison confirmed it. Forged scripts. Perfectly printed. Flawless signatures. Whoever forged them knew exactly what would pass. I brought Haley in again. This time with the journal in front of her. "You said you've never seen this before." "I haven't." "Then how do you explain your initials next to 5 of the victims?" Her gaze didn't shift. "You think that handwriting is mine." "It's not about handwriting, Haley. It's about motive." That's when she leaned forward, eyes locked on mine, and said something I'll never forget. "Motive implies I wanted something. But I didn't. They did." I didn't respond. I just watched her, the way her hand trembled for the first time, how she clasped it under the table, trying to steady herself. She wasn't afraid of prison. She was afraid of being misunderstood. That night, I stayed late, reading through every line of that journal. There was a rhythm to it, clean, symmetrical, almost mathematical, each patient described with empathy, each death justified as relief. But there was something else, an invisible presence in there. Entries, pronouns shifted, sometimes I, sometimes we. It wasn't one person writing. The breakthrough came when our tech team analyzed the ink. 2 different chemical compositions. One batch from a ballpoint, one from a gel pen. The kind used in hospitals for charting. .1 handwriting style was careful and feminine. The other, heavier, more deliberate. Whoever wrote the second part wasn't documenting mercy. They were documenting control. We dug deeper. Haley had trained at St. Mark's Elder Care Center, a small private facility in Dayton. We contacted the administrator, an older man named Dr. Kenneth Albright. He sounded genuinely surprised to hear her name. "She was one of our best," he said. "Never missed a shift. Always with the difficult patients." "Why? What's this about?" When I told him about the investigation, there was a long silence. Then he sighed. "I suppose it was only a matter of time." That was the first real crack in the story. Dr. Albright agreed to meet in person. When he arrived, he carried a small folder of personnel records, Haley's evaluations, performance reports, and something else, a letter of recommendation written in his own hand. It was glowing. Almost poetic. "She was remarkable," he said, eyes distant. "The way she comforted people. I'd never seen anything like it. But sometimes she'd stay after hours, alone with patients who were near the end. She said she was reading to them, praying with them. I didn't think much of it at the time." I asked if he recognized the handwriting in the journal. He looked at it once, and his face drained of color. "That's not hers," he said quietly. "That's mine." I leaned forward. "You're saying you wrote these entries?" He didn't answer. Just stared at the open pages like they were mirrors. I started it as a record, he finally said. End-of-life reflections. Notes on care. But she turned it into something else. He explained that he and Haley had shared patients. He, as medical supervisor. She, as caretaker. Together, they'd witnessed people dying slowly, painfully. You can't watch that for years and not start asking if you're doing the right thing by letting them suffer. At first, he said, it was only about comfort. Adjusting doses. Making the end gentle. But then Haley began keeping her own notes, using the same journal, same tone. And when he realized what she'd done, it was too late. Did you report her? I asked. I tried, he said. But who would believe that a woman known for compassion was capable of this? When I asked what this was, he didn't answer directly. He just said, mercy became habit. We filed for a warrant that night. Haley's apartment was sparse, almost unnaturally clean. The only decorations were photos of patients, framed, smiling, all deceased. Each had a small pressed flower taped to the corner of the frame. I in her desk drawer. We found a USB drive. Inside, scanned pages, journals, medical records, letters. She'd been documenting everything. But the most disturbing file was labeled simply, The Choice. It contained 7 audio recordings. Each one began with a calm voice, hers, saying the same words, you don't have to be afraid. You can rest now. The 7th recording cut off halfway through. The timestamp was 2 days before Evelyn Mark's death, and the voice she was speaking to? Not elderly. Not weak. Male. Dr. Albright, when we confronted him with the recording, he didn't deny it. He just sat back, hands folded, and said, I asked her to. She refused, I said. He nodded. She said it wasn't time. That I still had work to do. So that's what this was, a twisted mentorship. A shared delusion of mercy that had turned into murder. But then he said something that chilled me to my core. She only stopped because she found someone else. A week later, surveillance from a pharmacy in Newark caught Haley handing a prescription slip to a new nurse, a woman named Cara Whitfield, 32, recently hired at an elder facility in Licking County. We interviewed her. She said she'd met Haley at a hospice seminar, that Haley told her she was doing God's work. She said not all pain needs to be endured, Cara said, her voice shaking. That some people beg for help but can't say the words out loud. When I asked if Haley ever mentioned the journal, Cara hesitated. Then she whispered, she said I'd get my own soon. That was enough for an arrest warrant. But Haley was gone. She'd left her apartment 2 days earlier. Car abandoned at a rest stop near I-70. Inside, a single item sat on the passenger seat, a new leather journal. Empty. We never found her. The case file is still open, the caretaker's journal. Evidence box #4726. Every year, another anonymous notebook shows up. Sometimes mailed to a hospice, sometimes left in a hospital chapel. Always blank except for one line written on the first page. Mercy isn't about ending pain. It's about deciding who deserves to keep it. I've seen too much to believe in coincidences. So when the next file crosses my desk, another unexplained overdose in a quiet nursing home. Another patient who passed peacefully under unusual supervision. I don't think of it as another case. I think of Haley Reid, and I wonder if she ever really stopped.